The Mantis boss fight in Grounded just got a lot easier. Why? Because they've taken away the pollen shot. So now I'm going to show you 5 different builds that you can absolutely wreck the Mantis. It won't last forever, I'm sure they'll re-enable it, but take advantage if you've been finding it difficult. And I'm also going to give you some general tips about facing it. My name's Jade, you're Ratbags. If you find this video useful, do leave a like and let's go. So the pollen shot was causing a lot of problems, not only on Xbox but PC as well, with a lot of desync. It's something they've been trying to fix since 1.0, but in the end it looks like they've just removed it for now. I'm sure it'll actually come back. So the pollen shot would slow the player down, lower your attack and lowers your perfect block window. Now the Mantis still does some of them different effects on you as you're fighting it. But crucially, it doesn't slow you down anymore like it used to with the pollen shot. The pollen shot would also trigger all of these effects again, so it meant that it became really difficult to face off against it. It's pretty long time whenever the Mantis does use these effects anyway, not to mention the bleeds that she applies to you if she catches you with one of her combos. And obviously with the frame rates dropping or your Xbox even turning off due to the bug with the pollen shot, a lot of players were having problems with it. So it still does a lot of them effects. The only one it doesn't do anymore is slow you down. So that is a big difference. And also the pollen shot's not rebounding everywhere also reduces how much of that damage you're going to take. Effectively meaning the Mantis has become a lot easier to handle. As long as you've got lots of heals, you won't have to worry about getting in the right spot so you don't get caught by them pollen shots. So some general tips about the Mantis. It is going to be weak to salty and maybe resistant to spicy. So you want to be using your salt mace or anything that's got salt on it. Technically any kind of club would be maybe the best weapon as it's not going to be resistant or weak to it. But I'll go through why sometimes that might not be the best answer a little later. You have to look out for a lot of its attacks. It's actually got about 7 or 8 of them. A slash, a charge strike, a ground shred, a combo slam, a charge strike on earth and a vertical shockwave, as well as the pounce and the escape leap. So pretty much any time this thing's doing anything, it's going to be trying to cause damage. The Mantis also causes slash damage to you, so you can't use anything like spicy safety or fresh defense as they're not going to do anything to give you any extra protection. As I said, in the early stages it's going to do a lot of bleed damage to you if it hits you, so perfect blocking is really crucial, or making sure you've got plenty of heals. If it manages to hit you with its free combo attack or its scream, then that will also reduce your ability to perfect block, and that scream also lowers your damage. Not to mention your regen of your stamina, so it's pretty potent even in the early stages. Once it gets to 80%, the slam that it does is going to take even more damage away from you, and it just basically gets a lot stronger. And then when it gets to 50% below health, this is when it's meant to spawn in the pollen shots. So it doesn't do that anymore, but it's still pretty dangerous. If you do manage to get caught in its ground pound, it can devastate you if you haven't got enough health. And likewise, its combo that it can do really does a huge amount of damage too. Almost that will kill you certainly if you haven't made sure you've got full health. Now you can actually easily sidestep the ground attack that it does where it throws rocks from the earth. You don't have to run sideways with any use of your stamina, so just make sure you're paying attention to where it's coming from. When it twists its head and neck like that, it's going to do probably the most devastating combo of all. Okay, let's take a look at some of these builds. A healing build with either something that's going to give you life steal, but I would actually go for a salty weapon like the salty mace. Also make sure you've got the salty trinket or Thor's pendant. The salty trinket would be best as it's going to give you that, but obviously that is a drop that you might not have got yet. You need to harvest plenty of salt to get it. In all of these builds, I am going to be using max upgraded armor and weapons, although I'm not going to be using all of the brand new stuff. I imagine that you'll be taking on the Mantis, obviously after you've done the Broodmother, so there shouldn't be any complaints that you haven't got a fully upgraded set of armor at least. Likewise the weapons as well. Now some of the weapons you might not have put salt on, so I am going to make sure I show you guys if it's got salt equipped on it or if it's just a mighty weapon. So this is technically my healing build. Obviously you're getting much more out of every potion, meaning that you only have to drink one of them to really get all of your full health back. Whereas the rest of the builds, you'll notice I have to drink 2 or use a bandage or use a heal bassa. You want to make sure you've got at least 15 maybe of the beefy smoothies and obviously choosing which ones will work best for you. But I went for the boost juice as well as obviously the fuzz on the rocks and maybe something else like human food. Making sure you've had a good meal as well before you fight it so you can get some extra attack damage or extra critical hit, usually spider sliders or maybe even nachos. And I've got the corrosion shield here as well, which isn't that useful in this particular build, but it was just what I was using. It took around 5 minutes to defeat the Mantis using this particular build. The pros: if you're not particularly good at blocking and you've got plenty of healing items, then you just should be able to heal yourself out of trouble. Only when it does that massive ground pound attack or the free combos later on, that's when you've got to really worry that it might take all your health. I used Meat Shield for every single one of these builds because it's pretty vital in giving you that extra bit of health, and I used the stamina one too, as I thought that was pretty important. And then I mixed up a lot more of the mutations. I did use critical hit chance coup de grace quite a lot, so that was really important as well. But with slow moving weapons, it's maybe worth just working on getting something like the Barbarian perk, although that did give me the one and only time that I actually died. Parry Master is also another one that you might want to consider using. And pretty much I managed to avoid using only maybe 2 of my potions. I used up all 5 of my heal bassers and all 4 or 3 of my bandages. So I'm going to rate this 4 out of 5 for taking it on, because it's got a relatively early game armour in Ladybug. You'll have plenty of time to have got a max upgraded, including your weapon. Double damage with that Salt Charm, or go for something like I said, Thor's Pendant as well. I think this is a really easy build that you can get together. So the next build I tried was the Rotten Weapon build, basically using the Rotten Berry Charm that you get from the Flower Bed Laboratory or the Berry Monster Laboratory, and then using either the Larvae Sword or the Bee Stinger. I used the Mask of the Mother Demon, of course, upgraded, and obviously I had Spider Armor for the rest of my build. Now you get the 1 Toxic Cloud with the Mask of the Mother Demon. It does take a bit of poison damage, as you saw it there, it was going quite off, and the actual Rotten Berry Burst as well does a lot of damage. So effectively you've got almost 2 big clouds of damage. Now of course your gear isn't going to help the actual berry clouds. It's not technically the same type of poison, so it shouldn't really increase the amount of damage you do. But just the frequency of both of the clouds together, utilising the rotten weapons that would trigger it a lot, I found that this was really pretty effective. I went in with the blade first, but then when things started getting a bit more hairy, I switched over to the spear just in case I wanted to throw it a few times, and made sure that I changed mutations from Blade Master to obviously the spear one. I found this one pretty good. I've always enjoyed this build, and even with some of the nerfs to the poison, it's pretty strong. Now throwing the spears can do quite a bit of damage, but obviously you've got to make sure that you're pretty close up to it. It might seem counterproductive, you want to throw it from range so you don't have to get close, but you've got more chance of your spear being knocked away or actually stuck in the creature. But I found if you threw it right directly in front of its face, you could pick it up pretty quickly. With this particular build, it took around 4.5 minutes to defeat the Mantis. Now given that I had more of my healing to use because I wasn't wearing the Ladybird armor set, I actually still had 2 potions or so left. Also even had a heal Bassa this time as well. Some of that will be down to me just getting better at fighting it obviously, but I'm no pro with perfect combat or perfect blocks and stuff, so trust me, I'm like the average player. So I'd rate this build 4 out of 5. It's pretty simple to get together. I mean, yes, you're using the Mask of the Broodmother, and that won't be able to be gotten until later. But obviously you can't take on the Mantis until you've defeated the Broodmother and a couple times to get the parts to summon or make the barbecue. So it is a go-to armor piece as well. Like everyone should have this armor piece upgraded. The Spider Armor is still relatively low level at level 2. You won't be getting the next set from the Black Widow for quite a while, so it should last you a good long time. And if you're not a fan of the Rotten Weapons, which probably reduces it a little bit because I know not everyone wants to upgrade the Rotten Bee Stinger or the Rotten Larvae Blade up to that high level using all them resources, then you could easily just swap it out for a regular poison build. The Spider Dagger, and obviously once you get to the Black Widow, you can make this super OP once you get all of them unlocked as well. Then you would just swap out the Rotten Berry Charm for the Salt Trinket or Thor's Pendant. So the third build was the basically tanky one. I used the Roly Poly armor, and I thought maybe I could put Assault on the Fire Ant Club, at least one of the new weapons, and that could give me a good chance at doing a lot of damage with 2 things that it's not resistant against. So I went for the Roly Poly set to give us more blocking strength and maybe just withstand a lot of the hits. Obviously with no shield, I had to make sure that I was using something decent as well. The Fire Ant Club can have a bonus of critical days, so it basically gives you more critical hit chance. And initially I was wrecking it with only a few swings. But when I switched over to the Barbarian mutation, I found it was making it a lot worse, obviously not being able to block, and you still need to be able to block a little bit better than you think, especially with the swipes so you don't get a continuous bleed. I also spent a lot more time healing this time. This was the build that I died. None of the other builds, none of the attempts that I tried I died, but it was only this one. So the Fire Ant Club just doesn't do enough damage. Might as well go for the good old favourite Club of the Mother Demon. Now it would be great if you did have Salty, but obviously I think a lot of you guys probably don't. You probably have got it just as the mighty version. Again, with that extra ability nerfed to block properly when you've got Barbarian equipped, it didn't seem to be doing as good. I ended up using all of my potions this time as well, although I still had a heal Bassa and a few bandages left. I also again had the Salty Charm equipped this time as well, and it does do quite a lot of damage, especially if you get that third combo hit in. Again, give or take, it took around 4.5 minutes to take on the Mantis with this build. Definitely have the Salt Trinket equipped if you haven't got Salt already on your generic weapon or your club. Barbarian mutation could be good, but if you're finding it troublesome blocking especially, or losing a lot of health if you haven't got a lot of healing items, then you might want to switch to something that's just going to give you a lot more stamina to run around in. What's really good is being able to withstand that attack especially though, just by blocking. Roly-Poly used to be the GOAT armor set, but nowadays it's frowned upon a little bit more. I think that some parts of this are simple to get though. Roly-Poly should have fairly early on, so it should be no problem getting it max upgraded. And the Club of the Mother Demon is another one that you should essentially always get and try and max upgrade. But actually swinging these weapons, it still takes quite a lot, and it can mean that you're getting a big miss sometimes when it's jumping around the Mantis, or you just don't simply get a chance to pull off that third hit because you've got a block. And I did have to use every one of my potions as well. Next up, I actually tried a ranged. Recently, the B armor got a big massive buff. And I wondered whether or not you'd be able to do this relatively low level. Now I did upgrade the B armor down the bulky route rather than the sleek. Just give me that little bit of extra protection, as I couldn't see how slowing it down would really do that much difference, especially as it's only a chance of slowing the creature down. But I reckon you could probably get away with it. I did still have the Salty Charm equipped, but of course they only work on melee weapons, so you may want to move it to something else. Maybe Thor's Pendant would be a lot better. I did have the Black Ox crossbow max leveled of course, and I did take a whole bunch of different arrows. I tried a few venom arrows just to pop them off, but obviously you're going to want to make sure you've got plenty of salt arrows, as they're going to be some of the best. I had about 50 of them. It does look like it's pretty immune to a lot of the venom or the poison arrows. It was doing like marginal tiny bit of damage whenever I did get a hit. Obviously if you somehow got to the stage you're murdering the Black Widows, then you could try the super venom, but I didn't really feel like that would be a fair, decent one to have in this particular build, as I feel like none of us are going to be going after loads of Black Widows until maybe after defeating the Mantis. But I could be wrong on that, so if you got load, then I'm sure it'll do a bit more damage. It was pretty slow going at first, and you just got to rely on staying far away as possible and making sure you got good aim. Absolutely do not wear the full set of the B armor. The actual bonus that you get, the pollen shot, really doesn't do anything to it. Might seem pretty obvious, but given that it has its own pollen shot, of course it would be resistant against pollen. Instead it's the Archer's Hat to give you a bit more extra damage, and obviously making sure you've got plenty of foods that can give you more damage too. Mutations, of course, I did go for Sharpshooter, but I also had Natural Explorer on for a while before switching to the Trapper Peeper to get more damage with hopefully some crit. And yeah, honestly, it's the easiest way. As you would expect, it's cheesing, basically using the trunk to hide behind. Obviously, when it throws the dirt up with the rocks, that can sometimes catch you, but as long as you've got enough distance. When it does pounce, it will pretty much take away a lot of your health, so you are going to have to make sure you heal up quickly, but I barely used any of my heals. Time wise, it took about, again, 4 to 4.5 minutes. So at least 50 salt arrows or a mixture of some of the others. The marksman's cap instead of wearing the full B suit. And yeah, if you really suck at parrying or blocking or just getting up close to a creature, then this is the way to go. If you suck at perfect parrying or get confused and a bit all over the place when creatures are in your face, then this is absolutely the one to go. Using a B armor set from early game that you might have upgraded is also really super simple to get hold of. And given you probably won't be getting the Moth set till later, most of you have probably gone and upgraded some parts of the B set to get scarabs and stuff. Likewise the Marksman's Hat. The Black Ox crossbow, yeah, it's a bit more difficult to get hold of and don't get more to late game, but there are plenty of Oxes in the game now and you can get relatively the other stuff to make it pretty easy too. It doesn't take too long to run around and grab some of the pine cones. I reckon salt is one of the most underutilised resources in terms of the elemental foods, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue crafting a whole bunch of them arrows. And bottom line, I barely used any of my potions or heals, kept it at range, job done. And then lastly, it was the corrosion build. I wanted to see with one of the more modern ones how it would work, and I absolutely love this build as well. I've been using this other than the toxic cloud build I have with the poison, and it did okay. The first initial ones at least anyway. You can see I'm doing a huge amount of damage. The fire ant armor giving me that extra corrosive damage or splashback. The rusty spear absolutely killing it, and again the corrosive shield also helping with damage. Just like it was with the other spear build with the stinger one, if things get a bit too hairy, then you can go hopefully throwing it or getting yourself a bit of distance, hiding behind the tree. And like I said, unlike all the builds, I had to double heal quite a lot of the time just to be absolutely sure. So how long did it take? I would say again about the same time. Maybe a little bit longer this time, about 4 minutes 45. So this armor set is pretty late game really, so I reckon you probably have got more chance having the others upgraded to their max level, but then again you're probably not going to want to upgrade a Rotten Bee Stinger up to level 9. Although I absolutely love that kind of build with the Toxic Cloud and the Rotten Weapons, so I guess it's all preference. So yeah, only a 3 out of 5 because it does require quite a lot of late game stuff, and yeah, you might not have enough of them resources, so it's going to take a while to get a lot of that upgraded. But there we go, that's how I dealt with the Mantis. Now it's had a bit of a nerf. Go and give it a shot. Let me know if you've got a build in the comment section down below, and I'll see you right back some more soon.